They said I would go blind if I masturbated. I still remember hearing those words as a teenager, spoken with fear, whispered in shame, and accepted as truth. And now, decades later, I meet older men every day who are still haunted by those same warnings, not from blindness, but from something far worse, guilt. If you're over 60 and you've ever touched yourself or felt the desire to, you've advice for the elderly. Likely carried this silent burden too, not because you're sick, not because you're broken, but because society convinced you that something natural was wrong. I'm Dr. James, a board-certified urologist and men's health expert with over 30 years of experience. Helping men just like you, what I've seen is heartbreaking, men who've lost their confidence, their peace of mind, and sometimes even their relationships. Not because of masturbation, but because of what they were taught to believe about it. In this video, I'm going to tell you the truth, because what's been stealing your strength, your energy, and your dignity isn't masturbation. It's the lie that said you should be ashamed of it. And once you understand that something powerful happens, you begin to take your life back. But before you can reclaim your strength and peace of mind, you need to separate fact from fiction, because everything you thought you knew about masturbation after 60 is about to be challenged by science, not fear. Let's start with the most important truth of all, the one that decades of silent shame and misinformation have tried to bury. Masturbation is not your enemy. The real enemy is the myth that made you fear it. One, masturbation is not the enemy, the myths are. I've sat across from hundreds of older men, their eyes lowered, their voices barely above a whisper, asking me questions they've carried for decades. Is it still okay if I do it? Doc, am I harming myself? And I can tell you now, after 30 years of listening, treating and watching lives unravel, not because of what they did, but because of what they believed, that masturbation is not the problem. It never was. The real danger lies in the myths, the rumours, the so-called wisdom passed down in silence and shame. These myths are like shadows. They grow bigger in the dark. They say masturbation will steal your strength, your testosterone, your dignity, that it will make you weak, old, impotent, that if you do it past a certain age, you're perverted, broken, or sick. But here's the truth, there is no science, none that supports these claims, and yet these lies have cost men, their marriages, their confidence, their peace of mind. I once had a patient in his late 60s who hadn't touched himself in over 20 years, not out of lack of desire, but out of guilt. He believed he was protecting his health. What he didn't realise was that he was sacrificing his joy, his connection to his own body, and slowly his sense of worth. That's the price of believing a myth. Not physical weakness, but emotional starvation, not low testosterone, but low self-respect. These lies don't just shame a man, they shrink him. The real cost is invisible. It shows up in the quiet loneliness of the man who avoids touch, in the bottled-up frustration of the husband who cannot speak to his wife, about desire in the confusion of the father who tells his son to never do that, while never fully understanding why this damage doesn't come from biology. It comes from belief. And if you've ever felt tired, irritable, ashamed, or empty after an act as natural as touching yourself, then maybe it's not your body that's hurting you. Maybe it's the belief system that's been hurting you all along. But how did these myths take hold so deeply? Who planted these seeds of guilt in the first place? And why have they lasted so long? That brings us to the real heart of the issue. The real problem is what you've been taught to believe. 2. The real problem is what you've been taught to believe. I remember one man in particular. John, 72 years old, widowed, for over a decade. He came to see me, not for a physical ailment, but because in his words, I don't know what's wrong with me, doc. I feel like I'm rotting from the inside. He wasn't sick. He wasn't on medication, but What he carried inside him was years, decades of silent guilt and fear. He had been taught that touching himself was wrong, that it would make him less of a man, that every act of release was a loss of life force. What he didn't realise, and what so many older men don't either, is that the real danger isn't in the act. It's in the belief that the act is shameful. It's what you were taught by fearful fathers, judgmental teachers, outdated books and whispered conversations. You were never meant to understand these beliefs, wrap themselves around your identity, and they don't just cause embarrassment. They cause damage, real lasting corrosive damage. Because when you believe that something natural is wrong, you split yourself in two. You begin to distrust your own instincts. You punish your body for having desires. You suppress your urges and call it discipline when in truth. It's self-denial, dressed in fear that fear furs. It creates stress, anxiety, even depression. You become tired, not from age, but from the constant inner war you never signed up for. And here's the part no one tells you. The body remembers the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the fatigue that no nap can fix for many men. That's not aging, it's emotional suffocation, built over years of believing that masculinity must come without vulnerability, that pleasure must be earned or worse avoided. These beliefs can quietly dictate your life. They can make you push people away, avoid intimacy, numb yourself, and all the while you think you're being strong. But strength isn't the absence of desire. True strength is facing it, understanding it, and owning it without shame. So where did this toxic belief begin? Why do so many older men still carry this invisible burden, even in a world that's changing around them? To answer that, we need to look deeper into a syndrome you've likely never heard of, but may have lived with for years without realising. 3. There is no scientific evidence that semen loss harms your health. I've lost count of how many men have sat in front of me, their hands clenched tightly, eyes filled with worry, asking, "Doc, am I losing my energy because I ejaculate?" Some say it with embarrassment, others with panic. Almost all of them carry the same invisible wound, this haunting belief that every orgasm takes something away from them, they'll never get back, and they're not alone. This belief has crossed cultures, languages, and generations. It's become so deeply embedded in the male psyche that many no longer question it. But I'm here to tell you as plainly and firmly as I can, there is no scientific evidence, none that supports this fear. Semen is made of water proteins and small amounts of minerals like zinc and magnesium. It's not some rare fuel that your body will run out of. Your system was designed to regenerate it. That's how nature works. Just like we make new blood cells, new skin, new bone. Your body can and does create semen. Constantly losing it through ejaculation does not weaken you. It does not shorten your life. It does not cause fatigue, hair loss, or muscle decline. Those are fears, not facts. But here's where things get dangerous. When a man believes that each release is a threat, he begins to fear his own body. He starts to associate natural desire with illness. He avoids touch, he isolates, and in that isolation, the mind begins to spiral. Guilt turns into anxiety. Anxiety becomes fatigue. Fatigue becomes depression, and none of it is coming from semen loss. It's all coming from the weight of misinformation. I've seen it steal joy, ruin marriages, and push men into years of silence and shame. That's the real cost. Not physical weakness, but emotional ruin, disguised as discipline. This fear has a name. It's been documented by doctors. It's known as DAT syndrome, and it's spreading not through biology, but through belief. And the most terrifying part is that most men who suffer from it have no idea it even exists. They just know they feel wrong. So what exactly is syndrome? And why is it becoming more common? Even in the Western world, what you're about to learn may explain more than you ever realized about the struggles you faced in silence. 4. The real danger is emotional, not physical. A man once told me, "Doc, I'd rather be in physical pain than feel this constant shame." That hit me hard because shame doesn't show up on an X-ray. You can't measure it with a blood test, but it's real. It eats away at your joy, your confidence, your ability to connect. And when it comes to masturbation, the most dangerous wounds are never physical. They're emotional. You've likely heard all your life that masturbation is bad for you, that it makes you weak, lonely, or immoral. But what if the real harm doesn't come from the act itself, but from the crushing fear and guilt you've been taught to feel afterward when you begin to believe you're broken for something completely natural? You start to pull away from yourself, from your partner, from your life, and that disconnection has a cost. It shows up as anxiety that keeps you awake at night, as tension that locks your muscles tight, as emotional numbness that makes it harder to feel love, joy, or desire. I've seen it lead to strain, marriages, unnecessary medication, and years of quiet suffering. Not because these men were unhealthy, but because they were ashamed of being human. What's worse, this shame is often celebrated. It's called control or purity or discipline. But there's a difference between self-awareness and self-hate. One makes you stronger. The other slowly destroys your spirit. And for many men over 60, the damage is already deep. They don't talk about it. They don't seek help. They just accept that something inside them is fading, without ever questioning why you deserve to know that your desires don't make you weak, that your body isn't betraying you, that you're not dirty or diseased or doomed. You're human. And when you understand that you can begin to heal not just your mind, but your entire life. But what if I told you there's still more, that the fatigue, the irritability, the lack of motivation, so many men feel after 60 might not be about aging at all. It might be something else entirely, something hiding in plain sight and affecting more of your daily health than you ever imagined. 5. What you should really focus on. After 60, I once had a patient in his mid-60s who came into my office convinced he was dying. He told me he felt drained all the time, disconnected, like something vital had been lost. When I asked what he thought the cause was, he looked down and whispered, "I think it's because I still masturbate." That moment broke my heart, because here was a man who exercised, ate well, took care of his family, and yet he was blaming his exhaustion on something. His body was naturally wired to do, not because he had evidence, but because somewhere along the way someone taught him to be ashamed of himself. And this is where we need to shift the conversation, because the problem isn't masturbation. The real issue is that many older men are focusing on the wrong enemy, while the real health threats go unnoticed. If you're feeling tired, unmotivated, or even depressed, it's not your semen leaving your body. That's the issue. It's what's missing from your daily life. Are you sleeping? Well, not just getting enough hours, but the deep, restful kind that let your body and mind truly recover. Are you eating foods that nourish you, or just ones that fill you up? Are you moving, walking, stretching, staying active enough to keep your blood flowing and your joints strong? Are you drinking enough water, connecting with people who make you feel seen? These are the things that sustain energy, protect your heart, strengthen your immune system, and support your mental health. And yet these are the very habits that tend to fade. First after 60, not because of age itself, but because so many men are carrying stress, guilt, and emotional fatigue that silently rob them of the desire to take care of themselves. That's the real danger, when shame makes you give up on your own well-being, when you believe you're too old to feel good again, but you're not. In fact, this can be the chapter where everything changes, if you're willing to let go of the guilt and return to what your body actually needs. So now the question becomes, if masturbation isn't the problem, And these myths have only hurt you. What should you do next to reclaim your strength, your energy, and your peace of mind? What you'll hear next might be the most important shift you've needed for years. 6. What to do next. If you've made it this far, I want you to take a deep breath, because you've just done something most men never do. You faced a subject that's long been buried under silence, shame, and misinformation. That alone is powerful, but knowledge without action changes nothing. So let's talk about what really matters now. Where you go from here first, it's time to release the guilt. Not in theory, but for real. You are not broken. You are not weak. You're not less of a man for having desires for touching yourself or for seeking comfort in solitude. What's been hurting you is not the act itself, but the decades of false messaging wrapped around it. Let that go, not because I said so, but because your future depends on it. Guilt is heavy and it's been slowing you down long enough. Second, take an honest look at how you've been living. Are you truly caring for your health or just surviving? Reclaiming your strength starts with small, simple commitments. Get better, sleep, drink more water, move your body every single day. Even if it's just a short walk, cut back on things that drain you, excess sugar, late nights, hours of mindless TV, and maybe most importantly, reconnect with people, reach out to old friends, join a group. Open up. Isolation is the quiet killer of older men, and connection is one of the most powerful forms of medicine. Third, stop listening to fear. The internet is filled with voices that shout louder than the truth. But your body isn't a battleground. It's a living, breathing, beautiful thing. Start treating it with the compassion and understanding it deserves. And if you're still struggling with doubts, talk to a doctor you trust, not a message board, not a comment section, a real medical professional who sees you not as a stereotype, but as a whole human being with a story that matters, because this next chapter of your life doesn't have to be about decline. It can be about renewal, not in some vague, inspirational way, but in real daily choices. The question is no longer whether masturbation is hurting you. It's whether you're ready to stop hurting yourself with the lies that have been holding you back. Let go of the guilt. Reclaim your life. I want to leave you with something simple, something honest, something I hope stays with you long after this video ends. You've been carrying a weight that was never yours to bear. You didn't choose the shame, you didn't write the rules. They were handed to you, passed down in silence, reinforced by fear, wrapped in so-called wisdom. And somewhere along the way, you started to believe that your body was the enemy, that your needs were a weakness, that your desire was something to be controlled, hidden or punished. But now, you know better. Now, you know the truth. You've learned that masturbation is not the cause of your fatigue, your low mood, or your lack of motivation. That semen loss is not the loss of life energy or masculinity. That the real danger lies not in your biology, but in your beliefs. You've seen how shame can twist something natural into something painful, how silence can become suffering, and how misinformation can lead to years, sometimes decades of quiet damage. But here's the good news. You are not too old to change. You are not too far gone. You have not missed your chance to feel whole again, because healing doesn't happen in the past. It starts the moment you decide to stop fighting yourself. The moment you choose to treat your body not with suspicion, but with care. The moment you begin listening to facts, not fear, and the moment you allow yourself to believe that you still deserve peace. Energy, connection, and joy. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest with yourself, with your story, with your future. You've lived long enough to know that life is fragile and time is precious. So let the next chapter of your life be one where you finally let go of the guilt. One where you no longer hide from who you are. One where you stop apologizing for being human. And if this video gave you even a moment of clarity, strength, or relief, then share it with someone who might need the same, because this isn't just about you. It's about every man who's been suffering in silence, waiting for someone to finally say, "You're okay, you're not alone, and it's time to come home to yourself." These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.